Hello, this is Ryan Woodward recording a demonstration and code walkthrough of my senior capstone project at Grand Canyon University for the software engineering program. My project was a part of an internship under Paychex, and the Paychex team tasked me with developing a W2 data visualization dashboard. A part of that was the technologies specifically. On the back end was Java, Springboot, MongoDB, and MySQL. And I'll explain why that we use the two databases in a bit. But on the front end, we use Angular, TypeScript, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, etc. A variety of common technologies on the front end. But what I was tasked with was to provide RESTful service on the back end to expose the data in the MySQL database for the front end. So the user interface only gets to receive and communicate, interact with the data in the MySQL database, and the Mongo database is actually used to provide updates or insertions from, say, an admin side from Paychex to the MySQL database. So if an admin from Paychex wanted to insert or update a record in the MySQL database, they could do so. And those changes would immediately be reflected in the MySQL database, thus being pushed to the front-end user interface. And on the front end, I was tasked with just displaying that data in a nice way and adding some functionality for the data tables, specifically for the three primary entities being vendor, client, and carrier. The user needs to be able to page the data tables, filter, sort, and export data from those tables to a .csv file. So those are the primary functionalities and primary requirements. But from here, I will start doing a demo, and then I'll briefly go through some of the code, and we will move on from there. So here is the user interface, and currently I have all the records displayed in each of the tables. So there's only 10, otherwise it'd be huge, of course, but as you can see, we have the vendors, carriers, and clients table, and it's very easy to see that we can sort these according to whatever criteria. I have least to greatest and greatest to least sorted, or to be able to sort. We can see that in the client ID, where it goes from Walmart to Amazon, and then to Amazon to Walmart. We could do that in the description. We could do that with the lookup ID, etc. And that works for all these tables. We could do abbreviation, which is obviously irrelevant, but we could do that, sort all of these tables according to whatever criteria we want. We do have the ability to page, but since there's 10 and there's only one page currently, I set that up, whereas I'll break it up to show the paging by 5 records, just to show that there's 2 pages. And then in this icon in the top left is how we export data. If I were to click this currently, we could see, let me open that file up real quick. I'll bring it over. We can see that we have all the records for each table that show up. All the columns are there, but it's a bunch, and it's not all that readable. So if we were to add some filters, let's say if we were just to type U, or whoops, I'm typing an incorrect character. We've got microchip or Intel to pick from. I'll go with Intel. We'll add an I in there to get Intel. And if we were to go down, we could type in X. Oh, there is an X. I was not expecting an X. We have 2 X's, and if we were to add XP, we could get XPL. Down here, I see a couple C's, so then we could add, if we were to add, let's say, CO, you could get the Costco record. And then from here, we could spin that out. Whoa. I clicked on the top of the screen. Let me open up that file. And we could see that we have just 3 records nicely organized for each of the tables. And they still have all the columns. Those are all there, nice and orderly. All right. From that, let me refresh my page. And that way it'll remove all the filters and all the sorting. And I will reset the backend so that it will only display 5 records, and we can actually show the pagination in action rather than it just looking like I'm flipping through 10 records. All right, that should be pretty good. Let me refresh this. As you can see, we've got 5 records only, no others. But if I were to click this, we could see that it'll start paging the table. So we'll have the first page being Amazon to Costco, or yep, Costco. And then we've got fries to Walmart and back to Amazon and Costco page. We can do that to all of these tables. As it says Carhartt, then Bass Pro, or Amazon. Actually, what's funny is that seems to be that there's an 11th record, so that actually will go through 5 records and then it will continue to rotate around because there's 11 records. But up here we can see that JB to YRC to Amazon, JB to Amazon, etc. There's 2 Amazon records in the carrier client, the carrier table. All right, moving on to the back end, I will display the change streams terminal. Let me start printing this out. We will run this. It's actually just one class calling some threads for the change streams, and we will see shortly that we're getting client and vendor and carrier. Those are the 3 primary tables. I elected not to run the other ones simply for the sake of ease on my CPU and because those records don't reflect in the data table themselves. So what's really cool about Mongo is, let me actually move this over, but we can use Compass or their cloud web version, Atlas, to perform these change streams. I'm going to do it in Compass for the sake of ease. Let me move Compass over to where IntelliJ was, and that way we can actually display it. And I'll also bring MySQL back over. Where did I put MySQL? Well, I will open up MySQL. And from here, we'll be able to verify that those records were inserted. And we'll see this get updated. It'll print a message when I insert a record to the vendors. So let's add import file. And it was demo data. That's what it was. Demo data 3 vendor. We'll import it. And we can see up on the left that a vendor record got inserted. All right, and it was just, all it said is, here I'll pull up Visual Studio. In the demo data, the vendor, it was just test 1043, etc. Nothing actually relevant, but we'll be able to see that very easily if we were to open up our Paychex dashboard and select the rows from the vendor, and then we see test and test 1043. So that's the first record we'll insert, but we could do that with carrier. So I will import a file. Let's add a mock data, not mock data, it's demo data carrier. We'll import that. We'll see on the left here that a carrier record, and these are its values, got inserted properly. I'll pull my SQL back over, and we can open up carrier. And on the bottom we can see test branch 999, and according to Visual Studio, there it is, test branch test 9999. All right, and for the final demo we will do a quick client insertion just to verify that all 3 tables can get some data. So it'll be demo data 3 client, import that, and on the left you can see that we had one inserted properly. I'm going to close Compass now. I will not need that for the remainder of the demo. I'll pull my SQL back over, and I can open up client, and we'll see test 7777 opened. I'll close my SQL now. And according to Visual Studio Code, where I keep the records, it's demo data client, we can see test TST 7777. All right, so all those records were inserted properly, and I'm going to go through just a couple of things. The controllers are fairly irrelevant, only because the code is merely CRUD operations. It's not so difficult. But here is an example of the change streams. I create new change streams, and I start those threads here. I can actually show one of those from up here. Let's say client change streams. So this is actually fairly complex and admittedly not very well commented. The connection string is what connects us to the Mongo database collection. We set that up here, and then we begin to start setting up the connection to the client, and the database is also performed here. As you can see, get database, get the client. But here is where we start using change streams. And from here we get an event, be it update or insert only currently. If it's an update, then it will print this message. It will create a new client and submit an update query, which is done below. And these two queries, submit, update, or insert, actually create a new MySQL record and insert that into the database. All right. Aside that, let's see. It'd probably be worth showing a single repository. Let's go to vendor repository. And this is where I have all the methods that are used by the controllers or by any other thing that is necessarily working with, say, the vendors in this instance, to find MySQL records in the database. And this file is well commented, so I'm very happy to show that. For one interesting thing, let me actually show an entity as well. Was learning about binding the CSV to the files themselves so that when I export the data, I could show that momentarily. But this embedded ID was actually quite interesting learning on. So this is actually a separate class itself, and it contains its own fields, but binding that to the foreign keys in the other entities was very cool to learn, very useful. That way, those attributes, according to the ERD that Paychex provided me, that they would be consistent. All right, to the front end code. Let me move WebStorm over here, and I can show a couple of the classes. So I have several pipes that are implemented. These are actually many of the pipes because I had to implement them column by column. And here are some constructors that call the functions that will get all the vendors, get all the carriers, export the .csv, etc. Those are all below. And on the primary thing is the HTML component where all the structure is. We have the data tables. We have, in another portion, I believe it is the index, this is where the nav bar is, or the header per se. Then below we have a lot of these buttons that will filter according to what is entered, and there is a filter class. I'll show one of those. It's in services, I believe. Carrier service, oh no, excuse me, pipe, here we go. Let's open up carrier pipe. And this will actually search under the carrier abbreviation. It will search for what the user implements and return what is found. So that's an example of the pipe. Aside that, I don't want to go too much into the code just for sake of legal issues and getting in trouble at school. There is strict policy there. But aside that, I will close WebStorm. This is the Paychex W2 dashboard, and this has been my senior capstone project. Thank you very much for your time.